All right, so today what I'm going to do is explain to you how to write a free response question for AP Psychology. At the end of the year, when you take the AP exam, you will be getting 2 free response questions. You'll have 50 minutes total to write your responses for both of them. So about 25 minutes per question. The one thing that you maybe have had in other AP classes with free response questions are options or are choices. But in AP Psychology, you will get 2 questions and you have to write on the 2 that you are given. So the first thing that is important to do is to look at the question and look at how many points you think it's worth. And oftentimes what you do is you take a look at how many terms are given. For example, in this particular one, sorry, I'm making it go sideways, you'll see that there's an A and a B. And the part A asks you to describe the way in which classical conditioning and operant conditioning are different learning methods. So that would be 1 paragraph. It would be worth 1 point. In the second part, B, it asks you to describe the similarities they both produce by giving examples to illustrate your answer. So acquisition would be your 2nd paragraph, extinction would be your 3rd, spontaneous recovery would be your 4th, generalization would be your 5th, and discrimination would be your 6th. So in this case, you would have 6 paragraphs, and this FRQ would be about 6 points. So that's the first thing that you're going to do. So as you see here, if it's worth 8 points, you're going to typically have 8 paragraphs. Now there are some exceptions to that, so I'll explain that in a minute. Number 2, this is a little unusual. This is going to be hard for some of you who have done FRQs in other classes, but you don't have to write an introduction or a conclusion. There is no thesis statement. You're simply going to get the question and you're going to start writing. It truly is a waste of time. The readers who will be grading your free response questions almost get frustrated with the extra paragraphs. They have so much to read already, they're just going to skip right over it if they believe it's an introduction or a conclusion. Number 3, each bullet or letter should be a separate indentation or a new paragraph. What you do with each free response question is you typically start off with your topic sentence being the term that you're being asked to explain. So you state the term by defining it, if you know the definition, which you hopefully will, and then applying the term to whatever scenario you are given. So for example, like I mentioned before, this should be a 6 paragraph response. What you're going to do when you answer the question is you are going to start off by defining, in this case, classical and operant conditioning, and then the rest of your paragraph would be to describe the way in which they differ. Now, this is an example of a topic we haven't covered yet, so it'll make more sense once you actually know what classical and operant conditioning are. And then your second paragraph would start off with the word acquisition. Acquisition, and you would define it, and then what you would have to do is give an example of acquisition in classical conditioning, and you'd give an example of acquisition in operant conditioning. That would be your second paragraph. Your next paragraph would start off your topic sentence being extinction is, and you would define it. And then, once again, you would apply it to an example of classical conditioning, an example of operant conditioning. So in this case, you have to come up with your own examples. In some other free response questions, they might give you a scenario, and you would have to create an example based on that scenario. So you would go through and you would do that with each of the terms that are bulleted here, okay? Number 4, whoops. Get rid of that, okay. Number 4, what's really important is that you underline or put a box around the key concept you are writing about. So after you indent and start a new paragraph, one thing you would do is you would start off by, like I mentioned before, defining the term that they're asking you to write about. And in that topic sentence, you would actually underline the word classical conditioning. You would underline or put a box around the term operant conditioning. With a new paragraph, you would underline the word acquisition. You would underline the word extinction, spontaneous recovery, generalization, discrimination, so on and so forth. What it does is it clearly tells the reader who's grading your free response question what term you're writing about. And there's no question then as to what they're reading. The readers also want you to leave spaces between your paragraph. Now make sure you leave at least one, but you can even leave 2 if you want. Once again, it makes it easier for them to read your free response question and know that you are clearly changing from one concept to another. You want to use complete sentences. You don't want to start off your paragraph with dashes or bullets. And even though it's listed with an A first part, B second part, and then you see the bullets in front of each of the terms here, they don't want you to include letters or bullets or dashes. They want it to be a solid paragraph, in this case, 6-paragraph response. And that's really important. Sometimes what I've found my students have done in the past is they've indented, then put a bullet in front of the word acquisition, and then after the word acquisition, they put a dash before they start writing their definition. And that's not what they want. They want you to write in sentence, paragraph format with complete sentences. And that's it for this particular explanation.